Hi there, it's Justus and my good friend Chris. We're back with a new hack for you today. Today we're specifically talking about hacking introversion, and I wanted to talk about an introvert's nightmare, which is a social event or networking event, some sort of gathering where you're forced to do a lot of interaction and there are stakes. The better you do, the better the outcome. So there are a couple important things to remember here. The first one is preparation. Okay, so how do you prepare for this social interaction? Well, you need to get into the right mindset. You need to visualize yourself as a performer or as an actor, somebody who is going into a situation where they are performing and it is not really a display of your truer self, it is a display of your best self. And so how do you do this? Well, there are a number of ways. I particularly love power poses. I think they are great. They get your testosterone going. They get your endorphins up. Chris could probably tell us a lot more about power poses and how they're excellent tools for eliciting the right mindset.
Yeah, no, I think doing power poses and things like that and putting yourself into the right mind is super important. And a way to think of it is, like you were saying, like see yourself as an actor. Like an actor isn't someone that's lying. An actor is someone that can take off and put on different masks depending on the situation and the environment that they go into. And it's not that you're being false or you're not being yourself, but you're figuring out what are the characteristics and the personality traits that I already have that are going to shine most brightly in this situation. So identify what those are, and then you know that, okay, what character, basically a caricature of yourself that exhibits those personality traits, how can you put those on to go into that situation and feel comfortable in that situation? Because chances are you've done that before. Either you've been around your friends or you've gone to a party where you knew a bunch of people and you're comfortable with them and you're charismatic and you feel like you can go around and talk to them. But oftentimes when you go to a place where you don't really know anybody, you can kind of clam up and get inside yourself and stay in your head. But if you figure out what are the things that work when you're around your friends, you take those characteristics and you apply them to these new situations.
Right. So step one is preparation. Step two is inside the event, inside the party, inside the networking event, whatever you're doing. I've got two tactics that are especially useful for introverts here. The first one is planned intermissions, which means when you need to, every half an hour, every 45 minutes, whenever you start to feel a little bit uncomfortable, you take a break. That means you go to the bathroom, you go outside, you get away from people, 5 to 10 minutes. Again, do a power pose, take deep breaths, focus on your breathing, get back in that mindset. It helps if you visualize someone, a character, either in history or in fiction, who is someone that you would like to emulate, someone charismatic, someone who is essentially the character that you're trying to play. Bill Clinton, Steve Jobs, James Bond is obviously my favorite. So that's tactic number one, is planned intermission, go back out, get in the right mindset. Tactic number two is if you are not able to just drop out and take an intermission, it's really about focusing on your breathing and being in the present moment. So you're in a conversation, reach into the present moment. Focus on what the other person is saying. Focus on that other person. Focus on your breathing if you have to. Another really good tip is feeling your toes, wiggling your toes. Or, this is a great one from, I think it's The Power of Full Engagement, where you just rub your fingers together and no one sees, but it brings you to the present moment.
Another thing that I found that's really helpful is if you find, often it's good, like once you go in, you tell yourself, like, within 5 minutes of being here, I'm going to go up and talk to somebody. So you have that time limit. Or even like within 30 seconds of walking in, I'm going to find someone to just open conversation with. And if you find yourself having a really difficult time doing that and you start getting nervous and you start thinking like, what am I going to say? If you start to view yourself like as a third party, you're just a scientist like watching yourself. So instead of being like, I'm so nervous, think to yourself like, that's interesting. I'm feeling nervous. Like, what are the physiological reactions? Like, my stomach's getting tight. I'm short of breath. And when you start seeing yourself like as a detached third party, viewing yourself as a scientist, it's a lot easier to realize kind of how irrational those fears are. Like, you're not going to get killed, nobody's going to laugh you out of the room, and a lot of those things are just so irrational. So by seeing yourself from that standpoint, it can really change your perspective.
That's a great one. All of these mindfulness techniques are incredibly useful. And so the third part of hacking introversion is the post game, right? So after the event, you're going to go and you're going to take some notes. And this might sound crazy, and that's fine. Crazy works. You're going to go and you're going to take notes on openers that worked, conversation topics that were particularly useful, conversation topics that weren't particularly useful. Maybe you talk in your notes a little bit about affect of the other people and the emotions and physiological responses that elicited into you. This post-game exercise is incredibly useful. Another technique that's even a little bit crazier, and I highly recommend doing crazy things, is recording your conversations and then reviewing them after the fact. And this is obviously very not normal for most people to do, but that's okay, because you don't want to be normal, you want to be above average, and there's almost no better way to improve your social skills than reviewing them using a recording or even a video if you can get it, but it's pretty easy to sort of record your conversations and review them later on, especially in a networking event, social interactions sort of setting.
Yeah, and that's how you build confidence, through demonstrated performance. If you do it once and then you leave and then you think about it, you're like, I've done this before. It went well, or it went okay. There's areas I could improve. There's things that I did that went well, and I can do this again. And so oftentimes beforehand, you're like, I could never do this. I would be so uncomfortable. But then you leave and you're like, that wasn't so bad. Some things could have been better. But it's by doing this repeatedly that you prove to yourself that you can do it. And that's how your confidence grows.
Each interaction is an experiment. Every event is an experiment. You're a scientist. So those are our hacks for introversions and introverts, and let us know how it goes for you.
Go get 'em.